Om Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Guru Devo Maheshwaraha Guru Sakshat Parabrahma Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Guru Devo Maheshwaraha Guru Sakshat Parabrahma Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Guru Devo Maheshwaraha Guru Sakshat Parabrahma Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha.
Hello. You are listening to the Carroll Connection with your host, Jared Carroll.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Carroll Connection. I'm your host, Jared Carroll, here to bring you guys another great episode. I did want to take a chance to shout out my last episode 211 with Brian Diaz. He is the owner and main laborer of Clean Cuts Landscape. And on that episode, he talked about everything from, we talked about his sports, making friends, learning lessons through different disciplines in football. Obviously, you guys know I love playing football, and we kind of overlapped a little bit there and just talked about some of life's lessons through that, and talking about how he decided to chase his passion of like cutting lawns and landscaping and starting his own business. So check that out, thecarrollconnection.simplecast.com. Also available Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all the major listening platforms. If you'd like to watch your podcast, go on YouTube, search The Carroll Connection or at Jared M. Carroll. It should pop up for you. Or if you want to be a guest or return as a guest, hit me up on Instagram at Jared M. Carroll or at The Carroll Connection, and we'll set that up. And if you want to check out the 5 pillars to create a meaningful life, only available on Amazon. If you buy it, please review it, read it, all that stuff. Submit the review actually on Amazon. I know some of you guys have read the book but haven't done that, and that really does help with promoting the book. So if you can do that. So that brings me to today's episode 212 with Sathyadev.
You did a great job with that.
Did I get close?
Yeah,
or did I
you
get
did.
it? I got it.
Sathyadev, yeah.
I've been practicing.
Yeah,
Honestly,
I'm proud of you.
And
So happy to be with you. Congratulations on your book.
thank you very much, and thank you for doing the mantra in the beginning. I think that was just a different taste to starting a Carroll Connection episode, and I think it brings a lot of good energy. And I'm super excited to kind of dive into this stuff. We've been talking obviously for a while before this, and my girlfriend's obviously super excited, as I've told you. So we are going to
Shout
dive
out.
in a lot of great stuff into this episode. And the last time you appeared on this podcast was episode 184, if I do remember correctly, and that was about 10 or 11 months ago. So a lot has kind of gone down in your life. And I'd like to kind of dive into what's kind of happened since that last episode first. So I'll let you take the floor with that.
Yeah, sure. Well, I'm happy to be back. I have been doing a lot in the last almost year since I've seen you. I teach yoga currently at Full Radiance Yoga in Providence. It's the only donation-based yoga studio in Providence, so or in Rhode Island, I should say. So that has been taking a lot of my time. I teach there a couple times a week. I also see private clients through my business, Ananda Wellness RI, seeing clients for body work, energy healing, tarot card readings, intuitive coaching, one-on-one yoga sessions, all of this. So I live in Barrington with my partner. I'm kind of in the process right now of kind of reinventing my work week and my schedule and kind of orienting things to take on more clients and to be able to teach more. So yeah, just moving moving through the flow of life, kind of opening to each moment and each thing that arises. So it's beautiful. I did want to mention at the beginning I started with the mantra Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwaraha, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha, which means uh, the Guru is Brahman, the creator. The Guru is Vishnu, the sustainer. And the Guru is Shiva, the destroyer. To that Guru I bow. So that is the invocation that I brought, and I've been spending the last several months, as before, connecting with my Guru and sharing her teachings and yoga with my community. So that's kind of what I've been up to.
Yeah, I'm super excited to keep diving into this. And I think last episode, you were about to begin journey. Amma was touring the United
Oh
States
my
correctly,
gosh,
and I
yes.
wanted
Wow, I
to.
forgot about
Yeah, I was.
that.
I didn't want to like interrupt. But I was like, I
You're
think
like,
we had a big
wait,
thing.
but what about when you traveled all over
Yeah.
the country with Amma?
So could you go into that?
Yes. Oh my gosh, I forgot. Okay, so this is how life is. It's such a blur sometimes. But yeah, last summer, Amma came to the US for the first time since COVID because before COVID, she was coming every year to the US. She would start in Seattle and make her way across the US, about 3 or 4 days in each city, giving free meditation and programs and embracing people. As you know, Amma is known as the hugging saint. So she would hold these programs. And then obviously when COVID happened, obviously she couldn't travel to the US at that time. So this last summer was the first time she returned to the US since COVID. So I had the privilege and the honor of being able to travel with her to a few cities throughout the US. We were in Boston, we were in Chicago, we were in DC, we were in New York. So got to travel to many cities with her and be close to her and help facilitate people coming to see her for the first time and to be in her presence. It was really powerful, magical time.
Was there any specific takeaways that you got from that experience last summer? Whether it's something new about yourself or helping other people or Amma herself?
I mean, my relationship with Amma at this point, it's quite intimate because I've been her disciple for since 2012. So I've traveled with her a lot. I've lived with her many times. We have a very close personal relationship. Um, so that aspect is always there with Amma, where when I'm with her, it doesn't matter if I'm right next to her, if I'm in the back of the room, serving food or facilitating the Seva desk, the volunteer desk at the programs, or whatever job or task that I'm doing, or if I'm sitting next to Amma, like blissed out in meditation. Either way, I do feel that closeness with her. This time, I would say what I took away was just really seeing how um, contagious and powerful love is, because getting to be one of the people who was like actually standing next to Amma as people are like coming up to receive her hug and actually uh, kind of guiding them up to her and like wiping their forehead and like orienting them to like go in for the hug. And you really get to see up close how people are affected by Amma and how she really responds to each person completely differently. And with one person, she's like celebrating their marriage or their graduation or their new master degree that they just got. And with the next person in line, she's weeping with them because their husband just died or they miscarried, or there's doctors from Brown University or from Harvard coming to her and bringing her these like huge medical research journals and medical research to for her to assess, and like getting her consultation on prescription drug patents and things that they're working on. And then you have the humanitarian wing. So like, there's so much going on around Amma, and you get to see how she navigates each of those relationships and moments with such love and compassion. And that's always has an effect on me, but this time specifically it felt like more and more I was feeling how I also can embody that love and can offer that love to others. So that was a big takeaway.
Yeah, that's actually super beautiful, and I'm really curious too about the like reception that she received. Obviously, you said you've traveled with her prior to COVID.
Hmm.
How was that reception post COVID? Did you notice any like I guess maybe uptick in like people coming to see her? If there is more interest, if the um there's just more what's the word I'm looking for? Maybe interest, maybe it's just that, I can't think of another word that I'm trying to think of, but, like, the crowd sizes, was there more people? Was it about the same? Like, because like, I feel like right now with spirituality, obviously, we're going into a crazy different conversation off camera and, like, how I'm kinda still trying to figure out where I wanna end up in terms of religious aspect or spiritual aspect and, like, paths that I've explored. I feel like there's, like, a space right now, especially within, like, the US right now, we're we're kind of missing something, or it feels like we're missing something to believe in, and a lot of people don't really turn towards like the standard religions that they've pushed in the past, and we are looking towards other religions or spiritual teachers or gurus or someone to guide us out of this.
Mm.
Did you notice any of that this time around, or has it been kind of like a steady crowd the last couple times?
Yeah, I mean, so Amma's hugged over 35 million people
Mm.
in since I think 1989 or 88 was like her first US tour, maybe 87 to the US. So like she's hugged a lot of people and
Hugging Saint, right? That was
yeah,
what we said.
the
Yeah, yeah.
hugging saint,
I
yeah.
remember. I remember.
So her actual spiritual name is Sri Mata Amritanandamayi Devi, or the Supreme Mother of Immortal Bliss. That's the spiritual name, but Amma, Mother.
Mhm.
That's what people call her. So she's hugged many people, and the crowds are always sizable. Definitely, like post COVID, you have devotees or people who have like been followers of Amma, who have been to see Amma many times, or who love to come and see her every year when she comes to the area. So those people hadn't seen Amma for 5 years. I had traveled to India in 2023, so I had been living in the ashram just after COVID restrictions were starting to lift. And so I had the privilege of like being around Amma, but for some of her children in the US, like they hadn't seen her or been in her physical presence for 5 years. And so there was a lot of emotion and a lot of like people were just really excited to be in Amma's presence physically. And so that was there. And then also, yes, there were like many people who had heard about Amma during COVID, or who had like heard from friends about this woman and this woman saint who comes every year, and they maybe wanted to see her but couldn't. And then you also had people who had never heard about Amma, and maybe they had just seen a poster or something a week before she got to Boston or to New York or to Chicago, and they just happened to come and check out the program. But the crowd sizes were substantial, and um, Amma's physical body, I mean, she's 72 years old and she's been doing this for decades. So, and every day of her life is this. It's not just when she's traveling to the US, even when she's in India, she's like doing all of these physical, like she has the darshan program where she's hugging people. She also is like leading us in meditation, teaching spiritual discourses and singing bhajans or spiritual songs. Like all this, she's constantly giving. She's feeding us, like, handing out each plate for all the people that live in the ashram. And so there's a lot of that goes in physically that she's always giving. um on this tour we started to really see how like she's aging. She's much older now than she has been, and to see like her body going through so much physical exertion when she's like hugging people for 12 hours on end, or longer than that, or hugging them all night, one after the other, hundreds and hundreds of people, um, to see the toll that it takes on her body. But yet somehow she's like the first person and the last person she has the same amount of like excitement, love, energy, like effervescence. Sometimes when she stands up, she can barely stand up because she's been sitting for like 12 hours. But when she stands up, she's like radiant. She's shining like these lights, like literally, she's radiant. And I don't, that's like a miracle in
Yeah,
and of
that's
itself. To
insane.
witness it,
Yeah,
that kind of like love and ability to go beyond the body is quite powerful.
yeah. I mean, to getting up there in age and to travel as much as she has, and to like obviously to come in contact and hug that many people. Obviously, you get into the aspect of like just transmitting germs and all that stuff, and like it's going to happen naturally, especially when
Mhm.
you're encountering so many people. To be able to continue doing this at such like an older age, like is super impressive, and like to continue giving and giving, and like to have that energy with the first
Mhm.
and last person, like that's someone obviously who does what they teach and they preach, and
Mhm.
like that's what you want out of like a true like actual leader.
Yeah.
Like I don't feel like we don't get that a lot in especially mainstream cultures or religious um like teachers, and definitely not politically. We're not always getting like true leaders and people who do what they preach, but like seeing someone who actually is doing what they say they're doing and
Mhm.
embodying that and everything and giving the love, that's powerful. You don't see that every day.
Yeah, and it's because like we have our limited capacities, right? And like Amma is not connected to, she's not identified with her body. She's not identified with her personality. she's identified with consciousness, with supreme consciousness. She always uses the example that we're like a battery that runs out of charge after some time and how we have to recharge. But if the battery is connected to a generator, then it never has to recharge. It has infinite energy running through it. And in that same way, like when we connect to consciousness, when the individual connects to the supreme, to the divine, then that source of energy flows through us. That's so Amma's in a state where her entire life she is connected to and established in that consciousness. It's also why she's able to recognize everyone who comes to her. Like if you went to meet Amma, even though you would never have met her before, like everyone's experience is different, and I won't pretend like I know what everyone's experience is because it's all different. But there is a common thread of familiarity when people meet Amma, feeling like something about her is familiar. Or she'll make a face at someone who she's never met, and it's like that's like her long lost child that she's been waiting for this 35 years she's been traveling the world just for you to arrive in front of her. Like that's the level that people will feel this love coming out of Amma towards them. And I think that that only comes when we're connected to consciousness. When we realize that the same consciousness that's inside of us is also inside of everything else. And so Amma lives this way and she treats everything in creation from the smallest ant to the biggest, most important person in in head of state or politician or king or queen or spiritual leader, like everyone has that divinity in it. So for her everything is divine, and that's how she treats others and reaches out to others. So when we start to live in this way, we can kind of experience maybe a glimpse of what Amma is trying to show us.
Yeah, and I'm really glad that you brought up consciousness because this is somewhere where we definitely wanted to take this conversation where we didn't get to fully go into it
Mm,
last podcast, and we were diving into a lot of this in pre-show, and just I'm gonna bring some of that into this in the sense of like you mentioned, kind of like the connection to consciousness, the connection, or I guess disconnection a little bit we should have with like the body or the ego, essentially, in the sense of like at least how I look at it is when I kind of was telling you about like Jared Carroll. That is me. You see me on camera. This is Jared Carroll. Yes, but my disconnection to that identity is real in the sense of not like a schizophrenic break or something, but like this feels like who I am right now, but like when it's all said and done and this current life ends and I go to wherever is next, this is just an experience. This is not actually me. Like, and maybe this goes into where you're talking about consciousness of like, we're all connected and we all return to, I've always heard of the concept of source. Like, we always return to source, or you hear reincarnation, you go there, you come back as something different. And there is like this exploration of spirituality that I think a lot of us who were raised up on, if you're Catholic or Christian or the concept of God, not like knocking those religions, but a lot of us, especially in the United States, have fallen out of connection with that
mm.
or the idea of that. And we tend to go a lot more spiritual or the connection to the universe or consciousness, what we've been saying. And this is where I've kind of landed is this exploration of trying to figure out like, do I reincarnate? Is this my identity? Am I Jared Carroll? But I have this feeling of like being more than just this identity at the same time and wrestling with that to trying to just be a good person too while I'm living this life, like acting like, oh, well, I'm going to be something different in another life doesn't really serve me now. So like I could just do whatever. Like that's not good. That's not going to help people if I'm just like willy nilly and being a bad person or indulging in ego or selfish acts. Like, sure, I might be learning something, maybe not, but trying to find that connection between consciousness, source, my identity, the ego is there,
Mm.
and it's a difficult thing to grasp for a lot of people.
Yeah. I
And
would say the easiest kind of metaphor I can give for consciousness is the ocean. And the consciousness is the ocean. The ocean is expansive, it's vast, it's deep, it's infinite. In some, it's not infinite in a physical sense, but for the sense of the metaphor, infinitely deep, infinitely expansive. Like we don't understand all of it. We see very little of it in terms of like what we understand about the ocean. The ocean is consciousness made up of this water, this energy. And the ocean has individual waves, and the individual waves are what in Hinduism is called the jiva, or the individual soul, the small self, small s self. Um, so that's Jared Carroll, that's the individual. And like you are here, like you are living as Jared Carroll in this life, even if you change your name, the consciousness in you is in this form. You might change throughout your life somewhat in your ideology, in like what you're doing and how you look, but like the consciousness in you actually doesn't change. Even when the body gets fat, the body gets skinny, the mind believes this, then the mind changes its mind and believes something else. That is not consciousness, because consciousness actually is behind all of that, observing, witnessing that. So, like the wave, individual wave doesn't necessarily experience itself as the ocean, it experiences itself as a wave. But then a time comes when the wave, as an individual wave, merges back in to the ocean. And when it merges back into the ocean, it literally dissolves. That wave does not exist anymore. It is gone. So that's the piece that you're tuning into with like, okay, well, this Jared Carroll is temporary. It's like, yes, it's me. I can say it's me, but also it's not permanent. It's not eternal. And what is not permanent actually is not real. And I mean real with a capital R, because reality is what lasts. Reality is what is permanent, what is unchanging, what is true, irregardless of empires being built and empires falling and what we humans are doing to the earth and all this. Like, beyond that, there is this thing, this force, this movement. And so I think when we think about the consciousness, the individual self, knowing that the individual self, Jared Carroll, is temporary helps, because now you can start to explore and identify with what inside of you is not temporary. What inside of you doesn't change? Can you explore that? Can you find that? Can you find inside of yourself a consciousness that is actually not experiencing life, but witnessing life, that's witnessing what's going on. And this consciousness, this awareness, you could say, is actually underneath all of the thoughts of the mind, which is why most people are like, what are you talking about? Like, there is no space in me that is calm and quiet and still deep down. But that's because the outer layers, the surface layers, are so fraught with tension and the thoughts of the mind. And we're so identified with what's going on in the mind, we think that that's us thinking all these things all day long. When we start to do the spiritual practices that Amma teaches, that yoga teaches, that Sanatana Dharma teaches, then we start to experience identification with what is underneath the thoughts. We start to still the thoughts of the mind. When we get to this state, we're starting to connect with what we talk about when we talk about consciousness. And this consciousness inside of us, this awareness inside of us, is also in everything else in creation. Everything else in the universe is also animated by this force, by this awareness, by this consciousness. It's one in everything. Um, yeah. So that I would make the distinction that that is God. If there is a God, that's God. Not Sky Daddy with a long white beard, like cis hat man on a throne in heaven. Like, that's not, I mean, I don't believe in that. So, like, I don't
Same,
think of
yeah.
that as God. So, if there is a God, it is that supreme intelligence. And that supreme intelligence may take form as a Muhammad, as a Jesus, as a Buddha, as an Amma, as some enlightened saint or being. Sure, why not? But like, ultimately, that supreme intelligence is not what any one of these beings. It is beyond even that.
Yeah, and I think this is where I think a lot of people look at the landscape of religions and then you could draw those connections where certain ones believe certain things and they like they like kind of like tie and they link, and it's like, all right, this believes that, but they also believe that, and they are different things, and they believe obviously different things on a higher scale once you go up and up and up. But there's certain things that all these different religions do believe, and maybe this goes into this point where I kind of lean more into like kind of the stuff that you're saying and the beliefs that you're kind of picturing, because I've never been the type of, at least I was brought up to believe in the concept of heaven, of hell, and a God and all that stuff, but never really sat with me. Like we were kind of like talking off podcasts, and obviously people can believe what they want to believe, but like me being in like a bunch of clouds with all my family and friends that I've ever known forever, like sure, sounds good for like an hour at a party, but like realistically, I don't know if I want to do that forever.
Yeah.
But the connection to everything, where consciousness and like the awareness experiencing itself feels more real than something like that. And I think that's where all these different religions maybe partially are trying to like get to that point and doing it different ways, and some doing it wrong. But and obviously it gets into that control aspect that we are talking off podcast. But I think a lot of people are searching for that peace inside.
Mm.
And I think what I can't remember the exact quote that you said to me about whether you believe in God or believe in yourself. I thought that was like a really
Mm.
great concept. If you, I'm butchering it, but I kind of want you to go into that.
Yeah, so before that, I want to say Amma is the one who says, like, if you don't believe in God, that's fine. Believe in yourself. That's enough to believe in yourself. Because at the ultimate, yourself and God are the same. So that's, her words on that. I think defining God as consciousness is important, but it's also important when people think about finding God or finding peace or finding consciousness within or finding enlightenment, you're making God into an object which you can find. And that won't work because God is not an object. If there is a God, if there is a supreme intelligence, it's the supreme subject. It's not the object. It's the subject experiencing reality, witnessing reality. So that awareness, that intelligence is inside of you. Like it's inside, it's innate to you. So the practice is first in like quieting the mind through meditation, through yogic practices, to be able to slow the thoughts of the mind down so you can start to experience this. That's one piece. Another piece that we should bring in on this point is that there is a purpose for having a God with a form. Like if you go to my house, when you walk up the stairs to enter my apartment or like the upper level that we live in, the outside will have an altar, and on the altar is Ganesha, the elephant headed god, who is the remover of obstacles. So Ganesh will be there. And that Ganesh I worship every day. That Ganesh gets flowers and food and water and clothing and garlands and all these different things throughout the year. That Ganesh, I worship that Ganesh. Now, Ganesh, his form is important because for us, if I tell you meditate on God inside, close your eyes and meditate on God inside, you're going to be like, okay, what the fuck does that mean? You know what I mean? Like inside, like, what does that mean? Like, what does it look like? What form would it take, you know? And so sometimes, not sometimes, for the Western mind, especially, and for all humans, having an external form is important. I worship the goddess Kali. She's my main, what's called Ishtadev in Sanatana Dharma or Hinduism. Ishtadev is like the form of God that you personally identify with. In Hinduism, we have millions of gods, so you choose which one you identify with, which one attracts you the most. That's the one that is your Ishtadev. And then you worship that Ishta. And each of the gods has different things that they like, different ways to worship them, different days of the week, different times, different phases of the moon, different offerings that they like. So you focus on that god and you take care of that god and you worship that god and you offer that god food and flowers and all these things. Am I doing that because God, if there is a God, needs me to feed it? No. The idea is like I'm offering something. I'm making a form the object of my devotion, of my worship. But in doing that, I'm tapping into something inside. I'm awakening those characteristics, those ideals that that deity represents. I'm awakening those characteristics within myself because actually that's where they reside. And so there's an external worship and an external focus, but it's actually an internal alchemical experience of there's actually a oneness with that deity, with that uh, force. And so that deity is just one face, one, you know, entryway into what we're talking about, the supreme consciousness. It doesn't have to have a form. In Hinduism, we worship rivers and rocks and trees and it doesn't have to have a form, but a form is good for our minds to look at, to think about, to contemplate, the different deities and why they look the way they look and what are they wearing and what are they doing. And this helps the mind to focus and to become more still
Yeah,
and
that
meditative.
just tilt the mic up a little bit to you, just so yeah, you could push it. That'd be good.
Is that better?
Yeah, just so
Okay.
like it's angled up so it
Yeah.
gets you. Uh, and the point off that too is like when they say to like you could worship all these different gods, isn't like the kind of the point. Maybe I'm dumbing it down, but because like God's in everything, so like it doesn't matter what you are worshiping, you're
Right.
still worshiping God.
Right.
Because like obviously from like whether it's like a Catholic or Christian perspective, like oh, there's only one God, but when you're explaining it, which makes sense to me, is in the sense of like God's in everything
Yeah.
or consciousness in everything. Like
Consciousness. Even like you can be an atheist. Like it's fine. Atheism is great, beautiful. Be a humanist atheist. Be an atheist that's nice to people and compassionate and giving. But like atheism is fine. You don't have to believe that there is like a God. But what you should understand is that the same energy, let's say energy, the most kind of like sanitized thing that feels more comfortable, the same energy that's in you is in everything else. And there is an innate oneness in everything. And when you start to look for that and recognize that oneness in everything, then naturally you bow down to everything. Something I've learned from Amma is like when I pass a dead animal on the road, I'll like touch my forehead and then I'll touch my heart. Like I'll like I'll like reverence that animal and its life and the fact that it's no longer here. If I pass a cemetery, I'll reverence the cemetery. If I pass a house of worship, even if it's not my a Hindu temple, if I pass a church or a mosque or a temple, I will bow down to the towards that temple or that place of worship. The idea is that, like, it's in everything. Same thing with, like, if I'm at the park and you come to meet me for yoga, you'll see before I start my yoga practice, I bow down and I put my forehead to the earth, thanking the earth for letting me sit on her. Like, that's the level of so everything's divine, not only God is divine and you're a sinner and there's like all the purity and all of that and you can't approach God because you're impure. None of that exists within Hinduism. It doesn't exist. Uh, the truth is that God is in everything, divinity is in everything, it's also in you. And when you awaken this awareness, then you feel that connection, that oneness with everything. It's why you can't it's harder to be a meat eater when you're on the spiritual path because traditionally we see like animals as part of us as part of this family on planet earth, and so to consume an animal becomes like an egregious thing because that animal has the same divine energy, the same right to live and exist and experience reality as we do. And so there's this like human supremacy thing that we do as human beings, but we think we're the most important. And the truth is, like, if the ants and the insects and all the insects die off tomorrow, we'll die within a few days. If all of us die tomorrow, nature will rejoice. Life will thrive and flourish. So, like, who's really helping whom? They don't need us to live, but we need them to live. So there's this misunderstanding. So I think when you start to see divinity to bring it home in everything, you live your life differently. You connect with life and engage with life differently.
yeah, I think that makes a ton of sense and like just the connection to things and like where I start to look at is like you went right there, even like paying respects to other like whether it's churches or mosques or cemeteries or temples, like this connection to other things, even though they might not believe what you believe or
Mm.
they might be something else or do something else. It might be an ant, might be whatever, a animal that's passed away on the side of the road, paying respect because we're all connected.
Hmm.
And I totally agree with that because like there is this feeling of like wanting to connect with whether it's nature when you're going on trails or walks or connect with other people. I mean, that's why I do a podcast. Like I'm
Hmm.
looking for that connection to sit with someone and talk to them.
Yeah.
Um, we're all looking for that aspect in life, and I think the thing that sometimes pushes that away from people, obviously technology right now in this modern society, but like belief systems, like not believing everything's connected or
Mm.
having this concept of superiority, like where that you believe this, that everyone else isn't going where you're going, then can't associate with those types of people. Like, and seeing that mindset reflected in like their attitude and the way they treat other people.
Yeah.
And that's not okay. Like the way that people do that and use their especially religious beliefs, not even just like political beliefs or stuff like that, or social beliefs, political or religious beliefs to push other people out. And in this, I mean, you go through history, like this has happened. So it's
Yeah.
like getting back. It's like, how do we get to the point where we start looking at things on this everything's connected consciousness level, where even like when you first came into the podcast today, we were talking about just like different things. The way you used God was so freeing. So not the way that it's used, especially in Western societies. Like you say God, and like you obviously made the joke of like the white man with the
The
hair and
Sky
beard, and
Daddy.
yeah,
Yeah.
and like that's what people think.
Hmm.
And it's like when you say I don't think that you're saying that, and it's
Yeah.
like how do we break from that concept to focus on the consciousness piece? Because like you're talking about the energy, and I think that's a great way to use that for a lot of people because they're not going to have like this like feeling towards it,
Hmm.
and it's going to resonate a little bit more with some people. But how do we get to that point where we have to acknowledge that we're all connected? We all have this energy to us, and when we pass, it goes somewhere.
Mm.
It goes back to something. It's connected to something. We need to get to that place, and I think right now a lot of people are still searching for that piece.
Yeah. I think we're. Hmm, I think that the what we're seeing is the playing out of the belief system that we're separate. And, globally, whether we're talking about like the genocide that's occurring in Palestine, whether we're talking about geopolitics globally, whether we're talking about the political landscape of America right now and the rise of fascism in America, like we are watching what happens when people believe on some deep level, subconsciously, that they uh, are supreme or are better or are separate, even not even better but just separate, that you go there and I go here, and this is my country and that's your country, and you belong there and I belong here. Like that idea is actually not true. Like actually we made countries up. We
Yeah.
made them up. So like the earth doesn't know any boundaries, like there's no lines, and ultimately the truth is that we are one. And when you have like the far right Israeli regime bombing Palestine to the level at which they have done with our weapons, we've actually seen in the atmosphere a change. Like our already really bad climate crisis that we're facing as a globe was actually hastened by large exponential amounts from the bombings occurring in Palestine. So it's so like we're so interconnected that like we think that by being Americans who live here and like are disconnected from all of the ways in which our country has created like imperialism around the world and has desecrated nations around the world, like we think that our separation in distance from those things and our ability to be comfortable and happy in our little like bubbles is protection or safety. And I think we're actually meeting a moment now where that is starting to break down both at home and globally. And so, how do we get to the place? I think we're being forced. Like, I think that unfortunately, like, not to get too grim, but like, I do feel like it's going to get worse before it gets better in terms of this manifestation of duality and like separation and us versus them. And I think from that, we will see the awakening of like unitive consciousness again, people reconnecting in community and globally, like working class people in different countries, movements across borders, like connecting. I really do have hope in all of that. Uh, but it's a rough time. And I think, where do we start? We start inside of our own selves, because the work that we do on ourself is the only work that we can do to perpetuate or to project a better world. And I think that inner work is the starting place, and then it never stays inside, because once you feel that consciousness inside, it flows out. Once it's awakened, it flows out. Speaking of awakening, you were talking about before about the kundalini.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought this
So
up.
the kundalini energy is often talked about. We know kundalini yoga. We're hearing so much about kundalini in this modern new age kind of Western yoga world. And kundalini is a real concept, it's a real thing. Kundalini is just the dormant energy that is at the base of each person's spine. So it's said in yoga that at the base of the spine there is a coiled serpent, or an energy that is coiled like a serpent around the base of the spine. Through yoga, through meditation, through spiritual practices, this energy can be awakened and can rise up the Sushumna Nadi, the central channel of energy through the spinal column. It can move up and out the crown of the head, leading to spiritual ecstatic experiences, leading to awakening, ultimately leading to enlightenment. So the Kundalini has been talked about by Kundalini Shakti, or that supreme force. It's a feminine force. It's a goddess energy. Um, that's the other reason. Just side note. That's the other reason I'm able to say God so freely, because God is mother. Like, I worship God as the divine mother, as the supreme mother. So when I say God, you could even say goddess. Like, I don't like God is a mother for me. God is Amma. God is that force of love and compassion which gives incessantly and embraces limitlessly. Uh, and so I'm able to connect to that Shakti, to that feminine force, which is the real force, the real creatrix in the universe. Uh, and that I have power knowing that I'm a child of that mother. So for me, I don't feel like I've healed a lot of the wounds around God and patriarchy and homophobia and like all those things that like Judeo-Christian uh, values can embed in children. But the Kundalini and Kundalini yoga became very fashionable and very like in vogue. And it's in vogue again. We're seeing this like rise in Kundalini yoga, which is meant to awaken the Kundalini and make it rise. Now, Amma has said many times that many people talk about Kundalini and few people actually know what it means. So I would advise anyone to be very cautious to go to Kundalini Yoga. If you go to Kundalini Yoga, I mean, I would highly suggest doing your research on who the teacher is, what the lineage is, what their connection to the guru of that lineage is. I don't know anything about that. I can't speak to it. But what I can say is there's a lot of people out there doing a lot of somatic mind, body, breath practices that are meant to awaken the Kundalini, but they don't have any roots in a lineage. They don't have any proper training. And it's very dangerous to awaken one's Kundalini energy, like in a fast way or in a like, there's no shortcut. See, you awaken the Kundalini over time through practice, through the grace of divinity, of the universe, through the teachings of the guru, of the spiritual master. Over time, this energy awakens, and then when it's time, it's even said to be spontaneous. Some people have an awakening, and it's like that. Some people, it takes decades of practice of their life, and they have that Kundalini awakening experience. But that's just an experience. It's like a pinpoint. Ultimately, like, there is no shortcut to enlightenment. There's no 2-day yoga retreat that you can take. So I really encourage people to learn from Indian people, which is where Kundalini comes from, the Indian tradition, Sanatana Dharma, when they're studying, and also to like really be careful because what you're doing, like if I take you, I can take you through a practice and we can put our hands behind our head and we can breathe in, out, in, out, in, out, in, out for 10 minutes. And when we stop, you're gonna be lightheaded. The frontal portion of your cerebral like receptors will be highly activated. You'll feel elevated. Your blood will be flowing, your blood and prana will be flowing differently. You know, these are real things. Like yoga is a science. But doing these things in any kind of like with any kind of willy-nilly, oh, I'm just gonna do this on a Saturday morning and like we're gonna awaken Kundalini and we're gonna get this energy raised, it's very dangerous. And Amma says that like people should take time to learn about yoga, learn about Kundalini, practice these things under a guru, under a teacher. Not Amma necessarily, but some teacher who knows about these things and has mastered them. Even pranayama, which everyone's calling breath work nowadays, even the pranayama, like these techniques of right left nostril breathing, holding the nose, breathing through the mouth in certain ways, pulling the abdomen in certain ways, all of these things are very real and they will effectuate energetic and physical change. But it's very dangerous to do these things without the instructions of a very learned teacher. So as much as I love like Kundalini as a concept, and as much as I love the concept of raising energy in the body and all of these things, all of these things must be done in a supported uh, way under the guidance of a teacher who knows what they're doing. When you come to my yoga classes, we will do pranayama, we will do different asanas that invoke different experiences and awaken different points in the chakric system, the different chakras, and we do all of that. But it's in a supported way in the methods that Amma and her teachers in the Hatha Yoga school have taught. And so it's a very specific, regimented practice. So anyone who wants to learn these things definitely should. But we're seeing a rise of a lot of wealthy influencer type teachers who might go to India for a month, study, come back, and start charging thousands of dollars for classes that they basically have like ripped off different little techniques from teachers in India or different places and now are selling them and marketing them as their technique and renaming them, and there's a lot of that going on. So when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. If you're really ready in your heart to learn these things, there are uh, the proper teachers out there to teach. And I truly believe, like, if someone's yearning to learn yoga, they'll find uh, the right teacher. I mean, if not, they should at least come to my class. I'm not a guru or some great yoga teacher. I'm just like you. I'm a seeker. I've practiced, and so I can definitely help people in the beginning of their practice and like help them to experience some of these things. But a true master is needed for any of this to be effective and not uh, harmful. It's like if I take you to run a marathon and you've never run before and I just like put you out there and I'm like, no, you're gonna run. And like you're gonna make it to the end. And like whatever happens in between, it's gonna happen. Like it's gonna be really rough on your body and you may even be able to finish the marathon. Walking, running, sprinting, whatever in between, like taking breaks. You might eventually make it, but your body is going to be desecrated by that process because that's not the proper way. If you want to run a marathon, if you want that experience of finishing a marathon and feeling that bliss that runners get addicted to, you have to train. You have to go through the proper steps to prepare. And so that's what people are doing is they're kind of jumping into this kundalini yoga fad as if it's like some sort of shortcut because they feel high after it. And everyone just wants to get high, you know? But like everything else, you'll come down and you'll have to do it again. So it's better to learn a sustained and supported method for having these experiences.
Yeah, I'm glad that you explained it and said it that way specifically because a lot of people, we live in a culture right now that wants to take the shortcut. They want to chase. And right now, obviously, if you look on social media, TikTok, Instagram Reels, the concept of just spirituality is blossoming and awakenings. And you see it all the time. I see it. I'll watch them, listen, and I'm like, just keep scrolling because the concept of like the awakenings coming, the awakening, which I agree, this consciousness awakening in people, but it's almost as if, like you said, people are taking this stuff and ripping it off. And this will lead into our conversation about consciousness, creativity, and then capitalism.
Mm.
Because right now, what we're seeing is people trying to market themselves with this kind of concept of like being this spiritual teacher or this awakened person or X thing. But it goes back to kind of what you were just saying in the sense of like, if you truly want to like experience these things, the teacher will appear and you follow the masters. You listen to those people, and then eventually, maybe once you get to a certain age or a certain level of experience, maybe you could start trying to do that if that's what you want to do. But a lot of people want to take something. I read a book. All right, I'm a teacher. I'm going to charge you this on this course and tell you how to do what I did. You see it all the time. Doesn't matter if it's just spirituality, whether it's like marketing or a business or fitness, like that kind of concept, especially in America, like Western civilizations, is like so ever prevalent where everyone wants to be a teacher, everyone wants to be a business owner, everyone wants to take a concept, claim it as their own, and then tell you how they did it. And a lot of times, especially with some of these people who actually have made it and are teachers, they're not going to tell you all the stuff that they had to go through to get to that place. Like there's stuff that people have to go through to get successful. Obviously, lucky breaks and things can happen, but like if you're truly like a master of things, what we were kind of talking about earlier with like creative artists, a lot of the time, especially specifically we're going to talk about artists, they weren't wealthy. They didn't have all these things. A lot of the admirations post life.
Right.
So like
Most great people, like when they were living, were not considered great. Perfect example, Martin Luther King Jr. Like, I am so sick of hearing about Martin Luther King Jr., and I say that as a black person who loves Martin Luther King Jr. and is so indebted to the work of Martin Luther King Jr. But him as a social figure, he has been completely co-opted by white people and turned into something to be celebrated, when in reality, when he lived most of his life, he was like being imprisoned, being investigated by the state, being culturally and socially shamed for his like advocacy for his community. Like, he was seen as a terrorist at one point. Like, there's like, so people, it's easy for like Western liberalism to like celebrate these figures in retrospect. But like when they're in the moment, like standing against fascism or racism or white supremacy, like those people are not celebrated. So like it's important to remember that, because we deify these folks who have been like turned into these cultural icons, and we want to be that cultural icon, but are we really doing what the things that those folks did? You know, and all artists have struggled. All real artists have struggled. That's where art comes from. That's where it comes from. Like, you can't. That's why I, respect on anyone's name who has come on this show or who has done other things in relation to your work. But it's like, one of the things I've always commented on as a black person about like rap is like, there is a reason that black rappers, by and large, have had the talent and success that they've had. And it's because black people in this country have a unique experience. And that unique experience of struggle led to the art form. I mean, frankly, led to all music, but like led to many different expressions of that struggle through music and like processing of that trauma through what they were doing. And I think that our creativity, again, as we were saying kind of before the show, like creativity comes through you. It's not yours. You don't own it. Like this idea that we do this, we do that, we're this great artist, we're this great singer, we're this great whatever. It's like that is a farce. Like ultimately, like all the things that we've created that mean anything, when we were in the process of creation, it felt like they were coming from somewhere else. And Amma likens it to a pen. Like a pen can't be responsible for what for what it writes. Like first the ink must be there. The ink has to be present to flow through the pen. And then also the pen has to be surrendered to the hand of the writer. If the pen is fighting in your hand against you, you're not going to be able to write what you want to write. And really, you're the writer, not the pen. So if we're using this metaphor for creativity, it's like whatever medium you're using to create, that's the pen. And the creativity is your ability to access that something beyond you, that consciousness, that awareness beyond you, and funneling it into your individual medium, your pen, and surrendering to it. like letting go of actually I'm not writing a book. Like that's I'm in the process of like opening to what's here, and like that will come through in the pages. And so that's the real process of creativity, and I think any good artist knows that. So why do we identify so much with like being the artist or being the creator, like instead of like bowing down to that creative force in the universe? And like another example Amma gives is like the acorn. If the acorn is just sitting on top of the soil, it's like, I'm an acorn, I'm the best acorn there is. And it's just sitting on the soil. It doesn't become anything. If the acorn humbles itself and goes under the soil, into the darkness, inside, it germinates, and then it emerges as an oak tree. It becomes an oak tree. But the process of becoming the oak tree happens in the humility of the acorn. If the acorn sits above the soil, I'm an acorn, I'm so great, it will remain an acorn. It will never reach its potential because the potential isn't in what it is, the potential is in its ability to go within and germinate and grow out of what's here.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I was telling you kind of some of my experience with writing the book was like this feeling of getting the concept from somewhere else. Like
Mm,
the idea, like obviously a lot of us have aspirations in life. Some of us might want to write books, write songs, direct plays, write movies, whatever. I've always wanted to write a book, but like I didn't have a concept. Like everyone says, "Oh, I could write a book," but like till you try to like actually write a book, it's super difficult to
mhm.
like channel that like concept of like what do I want to write about? There's so many things you could write about, like, but what do you want to write about? And it wasn't until I tried some of my meditation practices that I've learned over the couple years of just setting a timer. I look for me either some type of running water or like a meditation hurts. Like I look for certain frequencies sometimes to kind of like settle me in. And then I wrote. I just journaled for a little bit and just kind of started jotting ideas. And then all of a sudden, the concept of like 5 pillars or 5 things. And then I don't know why I picked 5 pillars. I don't know where it came from. I don't know if I saw something or what, but it came from somewhere else. And like you're saying, I channeled that into the book.
Mhm.
Like, and I agree. Like this is maybe the ego. Like Jared Carroll, he's an author, but like I didn't do that. Like it came from somewhere else. Like I just happened to channel that and do the work to actually do it because there's a part of it of like channeling it, but you still have to do the work on top of that. Like just because you get the information doesn't make you the author, doesn't make you the writer, doesn't
Right.
give you the book. You have to still do the work, and like that applies to like anything you do. Like not even just spiritual type of works. Like if we're talking about like your fitness or your job or whatever you're trying to pursue in life, like just because you have an idea for something doesn't make it actually true. Like you still have to do the work on top of
Yeah.
that. And I think in this example, it's a perfect example of like where you have to channel that stuff, the information that you're receiving into your work. And then if you do it correctly and over time with consistent work habits, you create the thing.
Yeah.
But you have to allow that channeling to come through. And a lot of people are blocking their own blessings because they're not answering the call. I've always used the metaphor of like, you're going to get a call. It's up to you whether if you want to answer it or not. If you don't answer it, it's going on voicemail. But
Well,
that you're never going to get the voicemail on top of that. It might just be another missed call in your call log.
yeah, I think that like it even the idea of channeling it, which I agree with, but channeling feels like that I'm still doing something, right? So I like to think of it as like when the lake is, and a lot of the reason why people can't like get out of their own way is because they're in their head. Like they're stuck in the thoughts, like in the racing mind, in the anxiety and the physical like overstimulation of life. So like it's very understandable why people don't find themselves in the space where they're open and still and quiet and therefore can like hear that voice. And so we say in like meditation and in yoga that like that's why the practices exist, so that the mind can become still when there's like all these ripples at the surface of the lake. You can't really see a clear picture in it, but when the lake is still on the surface like glass, it perfectly reflects the sky. It doesn't have to make the sky or channel the sky or write the sky down. It just has to get so still that the sky, which is ever present, always there, ready to be reflected in its waters, can reflect. And that's the thing, like, the ego says do something, but, like, we are not, like, there's nothing that you need to do or be. Like, you need to stop doing. You need to stop trying to be. You need to quiet the mind. And when you become still, then you realize, oh my God, I'm not this limited wave. The entire cosmos can be reflected in you, but not when you're in your mind, and not when you're uh, so busy and so, stimulated all the time that you don't even know that that exists. But, like, when you can get to that stillness, then it naturally happens. Like, you are already it. That's the power of the journey, like, the acorn is the oak tree already. Already. Like, it contains everything of the oak tree inside that little acorn. So the acorn doesn't need to do anything. It just needs to go under the earth, bow down, get humble, get quiet, get still. And in the process of that stillness, something awakens inside the acorn, and that information and intelligence rises out of the acorn. And then the acorn itself crumbles. What it was dissolves as this tree emerges. And then who it really is there. So that's the same process with us. It's not as hard as we're making it.
Yeah, yeah, it really
Not we,
does.
but, like, all of
Yeah,
us,
yeah, and then we put so much pressure on ourselves as people to, like, to try to do something, to
Yeah.
be something, and I mean, it's even ingrained in us as children to be something, but it's breaking down and slowing down and even getting back to just the present.
Mhm.
Like, get to the present, and like we were saying off podcast, we were talking about the future doesn't exist. The past existed, it doesn't exist now. It's gone. Like, you can't get it back. You might look at your photos and reminisce, but it's gone. It doesn't exist right now. The only thing that exists right now is us. We're talking, having a podcast. Everything outside of this doesn't exist in our reality because we're right here.
Yeah,
We're right here. That's all we
yeah.
can focus on. And this is where technology and social media has changed that. And obviously, we want to be everywhere else but right here.
Mm,
And it's like we need to just take that step back. And whether you use meditation, journaling, just being outside, sitting, maybe if you want to listen to your favorite music and that's where you want to start, sure. But like, take the second to just take the step back. And then it gets into exactly how you're explaining with that metaphor, allowing the lake to settle so it can easily reflect the sky. And really it goes back to the beginning. It's
yeah,
all connected.
yeah.
And I think that's what we're chasing here. We are getting towards like the end of the podcast. So I want to start wrapping things up. I don't have like a last question for you per se, but I do when people do return, I give them their last words. So whether it's short, uh, long, whatever you want to do, I want to give you the chance to kind of say what you need to say, and then we'll start wrapping stuff up, and I'll let you plug everything at the end.
Yeah, I mean, I think that hmm, none of this, um, none of this matters unless we're going to, like, do the work. And I think that, um, it's really easy right now we live in this age of artificial intelligence, and AI is, like, worshipped right now globally, and, like, it's something that everyone's pursuing. And to me, AI is a very, very silly concept. Like, as much as it's like this amazing technological thing that could be used as a tool, it's also hilarious, like, in its stupidity, because in order for there to be artificial intelligence, there has to be real intelligence. Like, our intelligence, through all these different, like, technological mechanisms, feeds AI, and then over time, AI learns from us. And so, what I'm kind of, like, really on a mission to kind of motivate people to do in this time is to resist becoming artificially intelligent. Resist convenience culture. Resist like, buying into huge corporate systems. Now is a time to, like, return to the earth, return to our connections to Mother Earth, to take care of Mother Earth, to start to learn how to cultivate our own food and our own food systems. Like, now is the time to really start to awaken that oneness that we're talking about, not just in this like spiritually esoteric perspective, but also like through what we do day to day. Like we are seeing fascism on the rise in America. It's here. Like whether people want to accept it or not, fascism is here. Like we're seeing global war ramping up. We're seeing a live stream genocide for over a year of over 50,000 Palestinians. Like these things are happening. And like whether or not we like close our eyes and have the privilege to like be in our insular bubbles where we can only care about watching TV and like buying the next thing that we're interested in buying, like we can live in those worlds and we can continue to get dumber and less not like less feeling, more numb and more numb, and we can look for more things to numb us, or we can go on that journey that we're talking about of finding that inner consciousness and actually continuing to live as a fully functioning, conscious human being, as a being, not as a machine, not as a robot, not as um, something that's so disconnected from the outside that when the lights go out, we don't know what to do, you know? Like, can we return to that? And in addition to that, can we return to our common humanity? Can we take responsibility as Americans for what we are doing globally and like what we are supporting? Can we do that? And I think all of these things come into alignment when we're able to go within, when we get conscious. Because a conscious person, I'll say this is a good way to wrap it. We end every yoga class with Asatoma Satgamaya, Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya, Mrityurma Mritam Gamaya, Shanti Shanti Shanti. So this means uh, it's a prayer asking, like, take us from the unreal, from what is unreal, untrue. We talked about at the beginning, like how what's real is what lasts. So take us from the unreal to the real, from what doesn't last to what lasts. Take us from ignorance, which is darkness, to light, which is consciousness. So take us from ignorance to consciousness, and ultimately take us from death itself to liberation. So when we start to live in this way, in the light, in the consciousness, how we show up as a human being changes. What we tolerate societally changes. How we eat changes. How we stand up for our fellow human beings, regardless of status, regardless of gender identity, regardless of religion, changes. So, can we be numb and remain numb? Sure. That's what the forces that are ruling this world want. But I invite everyone to awaken. You talk about awakening, but can you awaken that consciousness inside of you that is love, that is compassion, that is aware? And can you, from that place, live into your true nature, your true being? That's the question that everyone's being offered right now. Like, will you remain numb or will you wake up? Amma says if someone is sleeping, you can wake them up very easily. But if someone is pretending to sleep, you can never wake them up. Which will we be? That's the question.
I think it's a perfect place to leave it. Leave the question with everyone watching this episode.
Yeah.
Digest that. And if you need to, watch it again. Like, we talked about so many great things on this podcast, and I'm so glad that we did this. And I was really excited to get you back on this podcast and record, because I feel like last time I was like, we could have went for like another 2 hours in that last
Yeah.
podcast, and I feel like it was a perfect continuation of what we did last time.
So nice to come back and be a part. And anyone who wants to find out more about me can follow me on Instagram at Sathyadev _108. I'm sure I'll be tagged in many different forums here with the Carroll Connection. You can also find me at Full Radiance Yoga on Monday nights from 7:15 to 8:30 p.m. and on Saturday morning from 8 to 9:15 a.m. So I do a morning class on Saturday and a Monday evening class. Both are very powerful. If you want to come experience some of what we've been talking about in a tangible way, please come.
Perfect. Again, thank you for coming on this podcast and giving me your time. I always appreciate anyone that will sit across from me and just share with me. I appreciate you for doing
Yeah,
that.
my absolute pleasure. Thank you. And I bow down to you and to all of your viewers who are the embodiments of divine love and the embodiments of supreme consciousness. Thank you so much.
And hopefully we get to do this again in the future.
Yeah, there's
So,
always round 3 and
yeah,
up our
we
sleeve.
would
So.
keep going, and
Yeah.
this never ending. Can hopefully wake up maybe a few more people with this. But for you guys like the podcast, please rate, review, subscribe, share with your friends, share with your family, share with your grandma. Check it out, thecarolconnection.simplecast.com. Also available Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all the major listening platforms. If you'd like to watch your podcast, go on YouTube, search The Carroll Connection or at Jared M. Carroll, and it should pop up. And if you want to be a guest or return as a guest, hit me up on Instagram at Jared M. Carroll or at The Carroll Connection, and we could set that up. And if you check out the 5 Pillars to Create a Meaningful Life, only available on Amazon. If you buy it and you read it and you like it, please submit the review on Amazon, and that goes a long way in the algorithm. So appreciate you guys. Until next time, peace.